The Zulu War began with the British wishing to expand their colonial territories in southern Africa. They hoped to include, amongst others, the independent Zulu Kingdom. The British perceived that the Zulu Kingdom, ruled by King Cetshwayo, was also a threat to their colony of Natal. The British High Commissioner for Southern Africa, Sir Henry Bartle Frere, issued an ultimatum to Cetshwayo on the 11th of December 1878 with the intention of instigating a war, ordering him, amongst other things, to disband his Zulu army and to discontinue the Zulu military system. When the ultimatum expired a month later, Frere ordered Lord Chelmsford, the Commander-in-Chief of the British forces, to proceed with an invasion of Zululand, for which the plans had already been made. Chelmsford divided his invading force into 3 columns. He planned to head for Ulundi, Cetshwayo's principal corral, and there link up with the southern column, encircle the Zulu army and force it to fight, as he was concerned that the Zulus would avoid battle, elude his army and attack Natal. The southern column crossed into Zululand close to the coast of the Indian Ocean, while the northern column crossed the Buffalo River into the north of Zululand. Chelmsford went with the centre column and crossed into Zululand at Rorke's Drift on 11th of January 1879. The centre column comprised of 2 battalions of the 24th Foot, units of the Natal Native Contingent, some Natal Irregular Horse and some artillery. A company of the 2nd Battalion, 24th Foot, remained at Rorke's Drift to secure it as a base for the column. Colonel Anthony Durnford was ordered to a defensive position near Middle Drift on the Thukela River with his force of Natal Irregular Horse. Chelmsford decided to head for Isandlwana Hill. The British had timed their invasion, hoping to catch the Zulu warrior farmers gathering their harvest. However, the Zulu army had assembled at Ulundi, as it did every year for the first fruits ceremony. On receiving the news of the British invasion, Cetshwayo sent a 24,000 strong Zulu impi to attack the British on the 17th of January. On the 18th of January, approximately 4,000 warriors were detached to attack the southern British column near Eshau. On the 21st of January, the remaining 20,000 Zulus arrived at the Negwabini Valley, where they remained concealed. The British reached Isandlwana on the 20th of January and made camp. They failed to form the usual defensive circle of wagons called a laager. Chelmsford, believing that his troops, armed with Martini Henry breech-loading rifles, were more than capable of seeing off the poorly equipped Zulus, with their clubs, thrusting and throwing spears and shields made of cowhide. Once they had established their camp, Chelmsford ordered 2 brigades of the mounted Natal Native Contingent to scout ahead. They soon discovered and skirmished with a party of Zulus, which Chelmsford believed to be the vanguard of the main Zulu army. Taking a force of approximately 2,800 men, including half of the British infantry contingent, Chelmsford left Isandlwana at dawn on the 22nd of January to find the main Zulu force, leaving 1,300 men to guard the camp under the command of Colonel Henry Pauline, consisting of approximately 600 British infantry and around 700 men, comprised of some Natal Native Contingent, local mounted irregulars and other units. The British also had 2 7-pounder mountain guns with around 70 men of the Royal Artillery. From around 7 a.m, Pauline began receiving reports from his mounted patrols of movements of approximately 4,000 Zulus to his northeast and east. He dispatched an urgent message to Chelmsford informing him that Zulus were threatening the camp. Around 10:30 a.m, Colonel Chelmsford, with 500 mounted men of the Natal native contingent, arrived to reinforce the camp. On hearing of the Zulu sightings, Chelmsford decided to engage the Zulu force reported in the east, which both he and Pauline judged to be moving against Chelmsford's rear, while a mounted picket was placed on a hill to the north. In the hills to the east, Chelmsford's mounted troops spread out and began their search. One troop found a party of Zulus which they pursued. They continued their pursuit until they discovered the whole Zulu army hidden in a valley. The Zulus responded to their unexpected discovery with an immediate and spontaneous advance. Chelmsford sent an urgent dispatch to Pauline, informing him that the camp was about to be attacked. Following the initial surprise and confusion caused by their discovery by the British, the Zulus' training and discipline soon enabled them to deploy in their standard buffalo attack formation of the left horn, the central chest and the right horn, with the aim of encircling the British position. Upon discovering the Zulus, Chelmsford's men fought a fighting withdrawal to a dried out riverbed on the British right flank, where they formed a defensive line. Some of the native troops in Chelmsford's force, many having no weapons, began to leave the battlefield. Meanwhile, Pauline had deployed all the British infantry in an extended firing line with the aim of meeting the Zulu attack head-on and checking it with their firepower. The Zulu central chest began suffering many casualties due to British volley fire, causing their advance to stall. Fire from the British artillery forced some Zulus to take cover behind the reverse slope of a hill. However, the left horn of the Zulu attack was making ground and threatening to outflank and envelop the British right. Chelmsford's men, who had been fighting the longest, began to withdraw as their rate of fire diminished. This increasingly exposed the British right flank. This caused Pauline to order a fighting withdrawal back to the camp. As the Zulu centre moved forward and the horns closed in on each flank, the British line collapsed. Fighting continued in small groups until the British ammunition gave out and they were annihilated. The horns of the Zulu attack did not quite completely close around the British camp, and some of the British managed to make their way towards Rorke's Drift. Chelmsford was unaware of the disaster at Isandlwana until he received the news that the camp had been destroyed. "But I left 1,000 men to guard the camp," was his shocked response. The British returned to Isandlwana at the end of the day. Long after the battle had ended and the Zulu army had departed, they camped near the battlefield that night, but left before sunrise, as Chelmsford feared that the sight of the battlefield might demoralise his troops. The column headed back towards Rorke's Drift. British casualties at Isandlwana totalled over 1,300 men, including 471 Africans who fought for the British. There were around 60 survivors. Zulu casualties have been estimated at around 2,000 dead. The Zulus captured 1,000 Martini Henry rifles, 2 field guns and the column's reserve ammunition supply. The battle was a decisive victory for the Zulus, resulting in the British Army suffering its worst defeat against an indigenous foe with vastly inferior military technology.